everyone. That is the fabulous Money Musk. It's a traditional tune, it's a traditional dance. The musicians are Rodney Miller on fiddle, Randy Miller on piano, Sandy Bradley on guitar, George Wilson on bass. CD is New England Chestnuts 1980, and where to buy? Great Meadow Music and a bunch of other places I know. So hello everyone. Sorry for the little bit of a late start, but it's been interesting here. We've had pixies making magic or something. I am Darlene Hamilton, and we are the Historical Tea and Dance Society. On our team, we have Lindsay Verbal, handling media and questions and all. And let me move it to gallery. There we go. Now you can see us both. And on Zoom tonight, we have Reed Wilson helping us out with postings and taking care of all your questions and comments and that sort of thing. And on Facebook, of course, we have Larry Hansen and handling chat and postings and questions on Facebook. We love the questions. The guests love the questions. So please feel free to ask. It really makes it part of the fun show. So our wonderful Renee Turner has been with us for 7 months, and she's taking a break, and she deserves it after this long, but I'm thinking she jinxed us because here I am. Where's my tea chest, and where's my normal setting? My power went out about 20 minutes ago, and I raced over to a friend's house. So we are doing it at a new location. Makes it fun for me. Anyway, thank you all for being here with us tonight. Again, ask your questions. They love them, and we don't always get to them all, but we save them and keep them for the after talk, which we post in the chat boxes. So you should definitely know where those are. Or if you registered, you've already gotten that link. And of course, thank you to Karen Axelrod and friends for your concert every Tuesday live on Facebook. We love it. Thank you all for being here tonight. Yeah, she speaks for a lot of us when she says how much the whole community means to us and how appreciative we are to be able to come together. So thank you. I'm going to jump into a bio about David Smukler. He has been a dance leader and a prolific choreographer for almost 40 years. He calls contras, English country dance, squares, family dances, and more. He's a past member of the CDSS National Board. His projects have ranged from writings, a book on contra chestnuts, to his pandemic deep dive into dancing Zoom workshops. He is one of our series regional guests from the Syracuse Country Dancers, and we're so happy to have him with us tonight. Welcome, David Smukler.
Hello.
Hi, David. It's great to have you with us.
It's great to be here.
Now, you had something to say before we got to the 5 things, so I'm going to let you do
right.
that.
So when Darlene asked me to think about my 5 things, I wondered if I even had 5 things left in my head after 6 months of pandemic, but I did, and I decided they were all related to one thing. So this is my hand, and the one thing is that they're all related to the idea of a living tradition. So the 5 things will all relate back to one living tradition. And now we're ready for thing 1.
Great. Yes. All right. Here we go. Thing 1. Classic contras and cracking chestnuts.
Yes. So back at you. Why is that related to living tradition? Because a living tradition has roots and depends on them for nourishment. That's the thing 1. So I want to start the story with the Ralph Page weekend, which was a dance weekend. It's still a dance weekend in New Hampshire. Every year, Ralph Page was an important person who kept contra dancing going for many years when it was would have otherwise maybe faded out. And he passed away in 1985, I think, and in 1988, NEFA established a new weekend to honor him called the Ralph Page Dance Legacy Weekend. And it's a unique event in that old dances are cherished and honored and always done there, and new dances as well. So you really get the full range of contra dancing there, and I really liked it. And one of the things I loved about that weekend as I was going in the 90s was that they always produced a syllabus of all the dances that happened. In fact, I learned a couple of yodeling squares from that syllabus that Todd Whittemore did. He would yodel these squares, and I just loved them. And so I would pick up my copy and learn from it. But the syllabus kept coming later and later. And in 1996, the syllabus didn't actually show up until the 1997 weekend. It was a full year that it took them to produce it. And then it turned out close to 1998 weekend, we learned that there wouldn't be a 1997 syllabus at all. They had lost the tapes and they couldn't produce it. So I volunteered. I said, I can do better than a year. I will do it in a month. And I took on the job of doing the syllabus and produced that first one, the 1998 one, in a month. And eventually I decided it took a little longer because I was putting more into them. But here's an example of one of my syllabi. This one is from 2005. It's over 70 pages long. It had a whole appendix of tunes from a Bob McQuillan workshop. It had another appendix of square dance breaks that Tony Parks did. And it has all the dances that we did that weekend and directions for them. And it was just a really fun project. I kept it going. I actually did 17 of them over the years. And the syllabi are all available online. You can go to the Durham Diamond Library website and find them. We'll leave a link for you in the Dropbox. And a lot of contra dance callers find that a useful resource because that weekend preserved a lot of the old dances and preserves them, and also always has lots of new ones. So the syllabus was important. Now, part of doing the syllabus project for me that was so exciting was it helped my friendship with David Millstone blossom, because David generously always helped me by editing my work. He would catch all my mistakes. He was the perfect person to do it because he understood dance, and he also really likes writing and the English language. So he was the perfect person to be helping me and supporting me writing syllabi. So that was important. And it turned out later, I went back and did the 1997 one that was missing. They found the cassette tapes, and I took those and produced one for that year as well. So I loved doing this. It was a really great process. So that was my first big project with supporting traditional contra dancing. I was a contra dance caller at that point. I'll tell you more about that and thing too. But my second project was this book, Cracking Chestnuts. And it actually didn't start as a book, but as a column for the CDSS News. So the CDSS News, we were doing some projects in Syracuse around chestnut dances. And I wrote to the folks at the news and said, would you like a column where I would describe a dance each time? And they said, sure. And I wrote the first one. And again, David was generously supporting me and saving me from much embarrassment. So it was great. We wrote columns for the news for 3 years. And at that time, the news was produced 6 times a year. So that was 18 issues that had our columns in it, representing 17 dances, because we had, Money Musk had to take 2 issues because there was so much to say about it. So here's the book, as I said. We collected all the columns into a book after that 3-year period. And then we added an appendix with a bunch of more dances, some other material. We fine-tuned the columns a bit and put it as a book. And the subtitle of the book is The Living Tradition of Classic American Contra Dances. Thank you, Pat McPherson, who was the editor at CDS for that wonderful subtitle. And again, it ties back to this idea that the dance that I'm involved with is a living tradition. And the chestnuts in English dance and in contra dance are the roots of that tradition. So that's my story with thing one. Let's go to thing two.
Okay, and we had an interesting question. I think I'm just going to go ahead and ask it. How did you and others come up with International Money Musk Day?
Oh, yes. Well, when the
Please
book
agree
came,
fast.
yeah, no,
Sorry, we
it's
couldn't bring her
fine.
up.
Yeah. So when the book came out, we decided to have a book release party. And my book release party was in this beautiful hall in called Madison Hall in Morrisville, New York. It's an old courthouse with the dance spaces on the second story. You take these spiral staircases up to it. There's a balcony and a tin roof, and it's just this great space. We had refreshments made, paid for with a grant from CDSS, and we had this big party. Well, I told my friend David about it, Millstone, and he said, well, let's contact everyone we know and say, if you're doing a dance on that night, that same night, he was actually doing his annual chestnuts dance that night. So he said, well, let's tell everyone we know that if you're doing a dance that night, you should do Money Musk first dance after the break, and we'll have a Money Musk moment. So we did that. We had a Money Musk moment. We collected their stories from lots of callers who dared it, who had never called Money Musk before. And lots of them were disasters and lots of them were really fun. And we have those stories on a webpage somewhere. And then we expanded it the next year to make March Money Musk Month. And it just kind of grew. But I'm actually really pleased. I think one of the results of this book is that lots of younger dancers really got excited about Money Musk. And you can at a dance, you can announce, we're going to do a dance, take hands 6. This dance has no partner swing or neighbor swing. And then people will go, oh, Money Musk, let's do it. And they get very excited about it. So I think we did that, David Millstone and I, with this book.
It's a great dance. And I have been at one of those NEPA sessions where we did it, and that was lots of fun. So I was having a discussion in the background with Lindsay. Were we going to show a little bit of the...
We will show something later.
A little bit later?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I'm slightly
Not
off
sure.
because I rushed over here. All right, we're moving on to thing 2?
Yes,
ma'am. Okay, great. I'm getting here. All right, thing number 2. Dancing, calling, teaching, organizing, growth over time, and the roles I play.
All right, so why is that living tradition? Well, here's back at you. So, living tradition enacted by living, changing people. So part of the us is me, and I change too. And so I'm going to talk to you about how I've sort of grown from my origins as a kid loving music into the old curmudgeon I am now. So I grew up as the son of a folkie. My mom played the guitar. Let's look at a picture of my mom. Here we go. So one of the things I tell people who ask me about how do I get my kid to play music, I say, don't worry about lessons. You play music and your kid will play music. So my mom always played music. She loved lots of folk music, took us to concerts, played it herself. And I started playing music as well. In fact, let's look at another picture. There's me as a young kid. I loved it. And I started dancing as a teenager. I went to camp in New Hampshire, in southern New Hampshire, and uh, there were these dances in little towns like Nelson, or there'd be these dances we would go to, and I was shy, and I would stand on one wall and watch it, and there were people doing these things, and they all knew how to do it already. The caller would say something like, and everyone would know exactly what to do. It was just astounding to me. They all just knew it because chorus jig always happened, Hull's Victory always happened, so they knew the dances. And I really loved it. I loved the music. I loved that feel that the old dances had. Well, when I went to college, I went to Oberlin, and there's a lot of dance and folk music folks who kind of came out of Oberlin. Um, Susan Kever is an Oberlin grad. Naomi Morse is an Oberlin grad. Arthur Davis, the son of Andy, was, he and I discovered that we not only lived in the same co-op, but in the same room in the same co-op. We would always take an Oberlin picture at Pinewoods. Every time I went to Pinewoods, there'd be a moment when all the Oberlin people would gather for a photo op because so many of us came from Oberlin. So there's a lot of dance and song there. When I went there, Paul Brown, the banjo player, went there. Rodney Miller went there. He did a radio program of folk music on the college radio station. And I remember him doing this trick where he took his bow apart and played it. He wrapped it all around the hair over all four strings and played bagpipes tunes on the fiddle like that. So it was a great time, and we learned a lot about folk music there, I think. I took square dance for my PE requirement. You know, it was a great place. After Oberlin, I went to Boston, and there's lots of song and dance in Boston for sure in that area. And I just kept dancing. I just loved it. And mostly contra dancing. Occasionally I would see English stuff over there or somewhere, people doing it, but mostly I did the contra dancing in those days. But when I started going to Pinewoods camp, then I got really hooked on English dance as well. So I was living in Salem, Massachusetts, north of Boston. And the caller for our local dances was actually a really close friend. My friends Bill and Sarah Gregory Smith were living also in Salem. In fact, I was Bill's business partner for many years. And Sarah was the local caller, and Bill always played in the band. And the dancers wanted to keep the dance going in the summer when Bill and Sarah would leave for vacation. So I got drafted to be the surrogate caller when they were gone, because Sarah wasn't there. And so I started calling for contra dancing, and I just kept doing it. I did it very poorly at first, and then got a little better and a little better, and people started liking the dances. Eventually we moved from there to the Syracuse area where I live now. And while I was here, I was invited by Richard Sylvain, bless his heart, who's a wonderful caller in Rochester. And he organized the English dance there for many years. So in the early 2000s, he asked me if I'd be willing to call English dancing. And I said, well, I'd be willing if he gave me feedback on my performance. So he did that, and sort of. And in the early 2000s, I started calling more English dancing. I would refer to myself as an English as a second language caller. It wasn't my first thing, but I can't do that anymore. Most of my gigs now, or at least pre-pandemic gigs, have been English lately. I get invited for that more than contra. I'm a regional caller in upstate New York. I get to Canada a fair amount, Toronto and Ottawa communities like me, and I'm up there often. since I grew up in Philly, I used to go down to Philly a lot for their dances and call down there. But I don't get much out of this orbit. My day job has kind of kept me linked to Central New York. So I don't know. I think of my strengths as being adaptability. I like to teach whoever is in front of me. I will start every contra dance with what I think of as a diagnostic dance, and I figure out who's in front of me and what they need, and then I go from there. English, it's a little harder to do that because the band typically wants to know the tunes before I arrive. So I can't vary too much from a list I've sent them, but I will adapt dances sometimes on the fly. For example, there's a dance, St. Catherine's. It's one of the Neil dances, the Neil collection, where we got Dusty Miller and Knives and Forks and those dances. And it's a nice, simple, it's sort of a diagnostic dance. It starts with corner action, and then the B part has some changes, 4 changes that are very quick. So the B part ends with 4 two-step changes, very quick changes of a circular hay, and then a long cast. And you know, if I'm watching the walkthrough and I can see that that's going to be hard for the dancers, I might just change it to 3 changes instead of 4 and skip the cast, and we end up progressed, and it's close enough. That's the kind of thing I'm willing to do. So from there, I also wanted to talk about my role as an organizer. I've been on the local board since the 1980s of the Syracuse dance. It's a really innovative little dance that we have. I think we've done some very interesting and unique things. For one thing, one of our local callers here is a young woman named Sarah Van Noorstrand, and she started dancing with us when she was in high school, now calls all over the place. When she was in high school, she said to the organizers that they didn't want to go to their high school prom. Could they have a contra prom instead? And so we gave them their head, and they developed the world's first contra prom. And there are many contra proms now, but we claim the first. It was ours first. We also, I was asked to do a triplet workshop at a festival in Connecticut, and I was working on the program for it. And David Millstone and I were emailing back and forth, my pal, and he was suggesting ones to do, and I was accepting or rejecting those ideas. And just off the cuff, David said, wouldn't it be fun to have an event where you danced all 41 of Ted Sinella's triplets? So he wrote 41 of these 3-couple long waist dances. And we thought, yeah, that's a great idea. And we did the triplet marathon of 2002. And did it in 3 locations: Syracuse, David Millstone's kitchen, and Lynn Ackerson did one in California. And you can still read the buttons that say, I was there at the triplet marathon. That led to a model of caller gatherings that have run ever since in Syracuse. And we have those yearly, and it's a great model. I've been invited to facilitate it in Philadelphia and in Maine, but mostly it's a CNY thing, Central New York. And we all gather and look at a chunk of repertoire and learn from it. So there's no master caller from whom we're learning. We just do that. So it's a great organization. Come see us, SyracuseCountryDancers.org. We have a masquerade dance coming up this Sunday, led by Carmen Junta. We have a pumpkin carving contest that you can vote in right now. So that's my thing too.
So I want to know, how do we vote in that pumpkin carving contest?
Just go to our website and you can see it. This survey, there'll be photos of the entrants and pick your favorite one.
Great.
We have that every year at our festival, and we just finished our festival weekend. We had a vestigial festival this year.
Cool. Sounds like you do a lot of community-oriented things, family-oriented things. So I think that's really cool. And I think that's leading into the next thing. So before I have you say too much about that, I will put up the next card.
Yeah.
Thing number 3, playfulness, including dressing up, calling for kids, and just having a ball. I like that idea.
Well, why is that living tradition? It's because a living tradition requires newness, freshness, excitement. So this is a thing about playfulness. And I want to start this by showing you my passport to joy. This is from the CDSS Centennial. And it was a wonderful idea. As part of the Centennial, CDSS issued these passports to people who wanted them. Here's mine. I have in it various visas from different events that I went to at the time. It was just a way to recognize that this activity that we all love to do so much, this dancing, has no other purpose really except joy. I mean, what other thing in our life do we spend all this energy and effort on, all this preparation, and the sole purpose of it is to get those mirror neurons firing and make everybody feel joyful. So I grew up with folk music, as I said. I want to talk about that in terms of thinking about how kids get excited about dance or music. Let me show you some more pictures. Here's Lindsay will help us out here, the picture of my young son, Sam. Sam is wearing his Morris kit there. This is May Day morning. That was me back then. And Sam is now in his 30s. But anyway, we were headed to the top of Thorndon Park Hill where the Morris dancers gather. Here, in fact, are the same bells that he was wearing in that picture. We still have them. And I made these. They're his Morris bells from his kit as an infant. So it's again that idea that if you want kids to get excited about music, just do it. Let's look at another picture. Here's my three kids. Sam's the one in the middle. And then Micah's playing the fiddle and Zeke is playing the guitar. All of them on my couch. And we just, music has always been a thing for us. And now they're all grown up and they all do music in different ways and not always the way I do it, but that's just fine. If you want kids to learn to read, you be readers in your house. You read books and then they will turn into readers. I used to work as a preschool teacher, preschool and kindergarten teacher. And I was asked sometimes to do teacher workshops about doing music with kids because I always did music and dance with my kids. One of the things I used for that was this wonderful book by Ruth Crawford Seeger called American Folk Songs for Children. She was a classical composer. Her kids were Mike and Peggy Seeger. Pete Seeger was her stepson. And she was a folklorist and had did a lot of work with American folk music, collecting it. And so from her book, I want to share with you part of the introduction in her book. There's this bulleted list. These are subheadings from part of her introduction, which is about why do we use American folk music for our kids? And I just am so impressed by these reasons. Why do we do it? It belongs to them. It's part of their cultural heritage. So for me, this is like, why do we do Hull's Victory and Money Musk? It's part of our roots. It's a bearer of history and custom. It gives early experience of democratic attitudes and values. It has grown through being needed and used and adapted itself frequently to new surroundings. It's not a finished or crystallized thing. Doesn't this apply to our dance? It invites improvisation and creative aliveness. This is playful. It has rhythmic vitality. It's a music of motion. It's the kind of music that anyone can make. It invites participation. And it's not just children's music, it's family music. So I think that kind of attitude is perfect for our dancing, and why we should be encouraging kids to dance and bringing them with us. One thing that happens in lots of dance communities that I've noticed is that people reach a certain age, they have children, and they stop showing up at the dance. That's a shame. They should bring their kids. Back in back in Salem, when I was first calling, we had this corner of the hall with a bunch of coats, and the kids would just bed down there and their parents would still come. As the caller, I always had a baby on my hip. That's because I was the only one with an available arm. The musicians couldn't hold a baby. The dancers, some of them had babies on their fronts or whatever, but mostly if there was this spare baby hanging around, I would perch it on my hip and keep calling because I could do that. So I think just thinking of it as a family activity and not just an interested hobbyist's activity is a really good idea. Let's show the next photo, Lindsay. This is from Syracuse. When I was on the Morris team, we had a Morris team for our kids. We called it Birchleaf Morris. And these are the Birchleaf Morris dancers. They made their baldricks. They decorated that medallion in the middle, each one individually, so they're quite creative, and wore their whites. That very stiff-looking youngster on the left is my middle son, Micah. And we taught them dances adapted as needed, and they would dance on May Day morning too for a couple of years when they were that age. And then they grow up and they move away, right? So trying to keep young folks at your dance is always a challenge. We would have people come in waves. When the Sarah Van Nostrand crowd all came from her high school, we had this big influx of youthful dancers, and it was wonderful. And then they graduated and moved away. And then there was a group from Morrisville, from a college, and they used to come, and that energized the dance for a while, and then they move away. It happens in ways. There's no magic formula for keeping them all the time, unless you're Chrissy Fowler in Maine. But anyone else, there's no magic formula. I just really like family dancing. I used to do this gig back when there were gigs in Ottawa, and I would call their English dance on Friday night, really sweet English dance. And then they have a big hall and a big contra dance on Saturday night, and they would have me do some workshop in the afternoon. And when they discovered I like to do family dances, they would have family dances as that workshop. And it would be astounding. It's big room, maybe 70, 80 people kiting around of all ages and sizes. And there was one time when I was almost done my program and I needed one more dance, and I thought, what am I going to do with these people? Put them in a circle, and we went into the middle and back. Great music going on in the background. We circled left, we circled right. And then I said, anyone with Velcro, just run all the way around the circle. And it's such a big circle, it took them 32 bars to get all the way around. And so a whole bunch of people ran around the circle and got back to where they started. And then I said, anyone wearing red or whatever, we just made it up. And at the end of the dance, people say, "What was that dance? That was the best dance." So it's just adaptability. Okay, so everyone has to do this with me right now. This is something I will do with my college students. I was teaching as a elementary school teacher ed program for many years. That was my day job as a college professor. So I get my kids up and I'd say, all right, do this with me. Bim bum, razzmatazz, tish tosh, wally woo woo. Are you doing it? Bim bum, razzmatazz, tish tosh, wally woo woo. Put your elbows in front, put your elbows in back. If you were a duck, you'd go quack, 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 and so on. You know, you always have to do this because it's fun. It's for joy. There's no reason not to do it. So the last part of my thing 3 here about playfulness is dressing up. A lot of us love going to balls and dressing up for balls, and it's just like playing in the sandbox. We love it. And I love it too. So here's me dressed up in my Regency garb with my lovely partner. And everything there is made by this wonderful local seamstress named Jennifer, who Jennifer Staples is our queen of seamstressness, if I can call that a word. And she made my cravat and my waistcoat and my tailcoat and Laurel's frock and everything except my glasses, which I found online. Those are historical glasses. And, so the thing is, the first ball I went to in modern dress because I didn't have it and I felt left out. So I gradually acquired a kit and now I fit in. I love to play. So let's move on to thing 4.
Well, before we move on, let's ask a question or two. We're not going to bring anybody up right now, but Lindsay, we had a question from the survey.
We did, yes. Eileen Poles wrote in and she asked, how do you simplify dances for young dancers?
Well, I just told you, didn't I?
Yeah.
I have a big circle and much as I love traditional dance, and I do, I started with that as my first thing, you have to dance with the people who are in front of you. And if it's kids, you make it a kid dance. And, you forget about the phrase if you need to, you go over the top of one line and back up the other, you zigzag, you do whatever it takes. And there's no one way, but I adapt it by looking at who's in front of me and what they want to do. Part of what I think of when I have a big crowd of antsy kids is that I'm never going to have perfect order. I don't want perfect order. That's not the goal. I want chaos that's managed chaos, just the right degree of chaos simmering so that everybody is happy and the energy is there. And people love those dances. Those are wonderful dances.
That's great.
So,
I also wanted to ask you, what's your favorite thing to do when you get out to a dance and you just think, well, maybe you don't think this, but sometimes I think, oh, these people are just a little too serious and I want to liven them up, let them have a little more fun. Do you have a dance that you pull out of your pocket? For adults?
For adults, well, there are some, I don't know, no, just silly dance. I think, Eastbourne Rover, I don't know, something simple, something playful. I think you can do one of those bait and switch dances, like the Jenny Beer has that version of the Spaniard that you set to one person, but turn your partner instead. You step to your corner and turn your partner. Just, there's a lot of dances that do goofy things. But I think sometimes people do goofy things with dances that are really, I think of as quite serious. And then I think, oh my God, no. But then I think, well, why not? So I think it's context dependent.
Well, this is so great. Thank you. I really love having somebody on talking about children's dances and getting children involved. And we've had some comments saying this is great stuff. It's good to know because, you know, we're all talking about, forget about the pandemic right now. We're all talking about how do we get younger people in. So this has really answered some questions for me. So thank you. I really appreciate it. We're going to move.
Well, just one more answer to that, which is the Rochester community has a lot of homeschool dancers who, and they actually, I was part of a group of 3 callers that worked with a homeschool group to have a ball of their own, and they made their own clothes and they did this ball, and we did easy stuff, you know, Draper's Gardens, that sort of thing. And they loved it. And then several of those kids started coming and being regular dancers at the English dance in that community. So that's another hook.
That's great. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to thing number 4. Thing number 4 is loss.
All right, so here's my back at you. Why loss? Since it's hard. And why is because you can't grow without loss. So I'm going to talk about loss in a few different ways because it's something I've been thinking a lot about lately. First is this idea that dance keeps changing. It keeps evolving. And when you're an older curmudgeon, after a while, you miss the way you learned how to dance way back when. That's the right way to do the dance. It's what I learned. So an example of this from my book, from the Cracking Chestnuts book, is is the column about Petronella. So Petronella was this dance where 2 people would balance and then, or they'd spin off to one side and then they'd balance and they'd do that again, spin and balance and spin and balance and spin and balance, and they'd end up where they started. That was half the dance. The second half was the same half as many chestnuts, down and back, cast off, 4 changes, right? So the figure, the characteristic figure was these 2 people interacting with each other. They would balance, they'd spin and balance 4 times, and they'd go back home. Then part of the deal, part of the feel of that dance was that each balance step could be something different, that the dancer would use that dance to show off their fancy balances. So I was a teenager in the 60s and going to dances, and a bunch of people my age sort of got into this thing of when the ones spin off to the right, the 2s would join them and make a ring of 4, and all 4 people would balance. And then you would spin as a foursome and keep doing that until you got back home. And we thought it was the coolest thing on wheels, but the old timers hated it. They said, "You're wrecking our dance. How could you do this to us?" But we loved it. And many of us, people my age and my generation, that's how we remember Petronella. That's how it goes. You spin and take hands 4 and then continue. And we loved the dance. Well, in the, I don't know, early 80s sometime, people started doing Petronella and other dances with Petronella spins in it with this little clap, clap. You'd spin to the right and you go clap, clap. Or you'd balance and spin and clap, clap, something like that. And the little clap, clap, we started referring to it as a social disease, right? The clap. We really hated it. And I realized that this is just my comeuppance. It's the way it's going to be. And the clap has become firmly established, and that's just fine. Dances change. But we feel a sense of loss when that happens. And because we miss the way it used to be, the way we remember it. And that's an inevitable part of change. But the living tradition won't survive without change. So that's one thing. Another aspect of loss in the dance community is that we lose people. We lose friends and mentors, you know, they fall off one end and they come in the other end. So we don't get the coming in without the falling off. It just doesn't work that way, right? I think that's just an important part to embrace instead of hating it. We just should remember that that's part of it. There's dances that commemorate people that we love and have lost, like Gary Rubin's Mary Kay, Randolph Farewell by Fried Herman. Those are dances that commemorate important people that were loved and part of the dance community. I think there's a bigger kind of loss too that sometimes a dance will commemorate. Fried's Crown of the Year is a dance that commemorates the World Trade Center disaster. I think Gary Rubin's recent dance Renewal was written related to the fires in California, and I think it's about loss. I think it's a really haunting dance to me, and the tune, Rebecca's tune, is so beautiful. And so I think that's a piece of our dance community is remembering and loss. And whether or not people are commemorated in the dance, we still miss my mentors from when I first learned to be a caller were Sarah Smith, that I talked about before, passed away last year. Ted Sinella, I learned so much from him. He's been going now 25 years. I just learned that it's already that long. It's so, you know, I think those are important to acknowledge. And the last aspect of loss that I wanted to talk about as part of thing 4 here is the pandemic. We've all lost the opportunity to do this activity we love so much. And, you know, the online dances are I admire people who do them, but it's not the same. And we're all looking forward to when we can dance again. In fact, those of you who know me know that this facial hair isn't always like this. I typically bring these in February, March for the Central New York ball season, which happens in spring, so that I can look, have the appropriate, historically appropriate facial hair. And I've decided I'm leaving these on until I get to go to a ball. This is how I'm gonna look from now on. It's my pandemic look. So that's it. Let's go to thing 5.
Okay, thing 5, choreography. Why bother?
All right, so in your introduction to me, Darlene, you described me as a prolific choreographer, and that's true. Here's the question, why bother? And the reason we bother is because as a living tradition can't just depend on its chestnuts. It needs new grafts, not just roots, and diversity to continue to grow and thrive and be a living thing. So it's the living tradition still. So why do I bother to write dances? And the question why bother is a really good one, because there's so many good dances, aren't there? Like, how many dances do we need? You know, there are thousands of English country dances, and they're brilliant, and there's so many good ones. I never have trouble filling a program with appropriate dances and all the moods and keys and rhythms and degrees of difficulty that I'm looking for. There's no need for another dance. But it's an itch to scratch. I'll be doing a dance and I'll think, I like this dance, except for this one little thing. I want to tweak that thing. And so I'll mess with it. Or, you know, I'll fix a dance on the fly because the group in front of me can't do it. Or I come across a tune and I say, that tune just needs a dance. Or I want to commemorate something. I have a story about my second grandson. His name is Leo. He was born this July. And about a month before he was born, I contacted Debbie Jackson and I said, Debbie, would you write a tune for me? I have this grandson coming up and I need a tune worthy of the occasion. And she said, oh, sure, I'd love to. And she sent me a bunch of ideas. And one of them was this stunning tune that she ended up calling Peace Walk. I love this tune. And so I wrote a dance for Leo's birth, and I had a title for it that I wasn't all that thrilled by, but I had the dance. And Debbie decided to do that, send that tune to Karen Axelrod for her In the Moment thing. So Debbie and Karen together played this wonderful tune, Peace Walk. They played it on July 14th, and it just so happened that Leo was born that morning. It was the perfect thing. So I loved it. So sometimes, you know, you need that. I wrote a dance on commission when David Millstone had a celebration for his de-accession as CDSS president. There were a few dances written on that occasion. There's one that has a tune called Mr. Millstone's Defenestration that was written by Brooke Friendly. But my dance for him is a contra dance, and it comes from an anecdote about Petronella in this book. The anecdote was that David was calling a dance, and there was a kind of hot modern dancer with the headband and the shorts and the look of the modern urban contra dancer at the dance. And he came up to David at the break, and David must have been doing too much traditional feeling stuff for this guy, because he said, could you maybe do some dances with some more hot modern moves? And David said, well, like what? And he said, you know, like Petronella spins. And of course that gave us all a big laugh. So I wrote a dance called Hot Modern Moves for David with some Petronella spins in it. And at camp a couple years ago, a couple summers ago, David was calling it. And I said, gee, this dance sounds familiar. What is this? That's what it was. Anyway, so yeah, I've been very busy with choreography, and during the pandemic, I've been very busy. I've written probably 24 dances in the last 6 months. And the cardinal rule of choreography is that you should test your dances, and I can't test any of them. So unfortunately, I'm gonna probably end up throwing out half of them, but I put them all up on my website as coronavirus dances, and we'll test them once we can. One of them actually has just been published in the CDSS newsletter. You could show us that, Lindsay. This is my dance called We'll Dance Again. And it's a contra dance. It's a proper contra dance. It's written hopefully to appeal to people who like traditional styling and modern styling. You'll have to tell me once you can dance it if you think I achieved that. So the last thing I want to say about choreography here is that I really need tunes. Tune writers out there, you should send me your tunes because I'm thirsty for them. Here's all the people whose tunes I've used so far. There's quite a range of cool composers here. You might have to scroll more because they're not all showing up on my screen. Maybe, I don't know. Well, anyway, there's lots of them. There was a tune played today in the moment. My wife sent in a tune for my dance for Ruth Bader Ginsburg called The Justice, and it was beautiful to hear, really nice. So I think that leaves us at the end, and we're just about on time, except I missed something that was of great importance to me. And
we are
Lindsay
not going to
laughing.
let you get away with that.
Yeah,
So,
laughing. So let's look at one other thing. After David and I finished the book, Cracking Chestnuts, we had another project where we created a resource of accompanying videos for the book. And Lindsay's going to show you this. It's on the CDSS website. And this is an amazing resource. I want you to see it. So if you could scroll down, Lindsay, here's all the dances that are in the book. It's the same as the table of contents of the book. And all the appendix dances are in here too. And we have a little video clip that illustrates every single dance. And as you can see, for some of them, we have multiple versions. If you highlight, if you hover, it will highlight. And if you click there on Chorus Jig Say, now you can see all three versions. And before you click on that first one to show what it looks like, I want to describe what you'll see. No, actually, go ahead and click on the first one. And you can see a video will come up, a little YouTube screen, and the dance instructions are there on the right. And below, you can see where this was danced, who was calling and who was playing music and what the tune was. And the dance instructions are there. Now, once Lindsay clicks on that window to start the video, I want you to notice what happens to the dance instructions. Go ahead.
Down the outside, twos look around, see whether you need to move up the sets. Keep the spacing relatively even in your line.
So if you want to learn the dance, you get a follow the bouncing ball on the dance directions while you watch the wonderful dancing of Bob and Sue Dupre there, being active couples in Chorus Jig. So, and there's a million wonderful moments in these videos. I really encourage you to go explore them. And if you want me to do the same thing for your favorite English dance video, I can do that. But
that's wonderful.
The programming to make that happen was done by my brilliant son, the one you saw standing stiffly in Birchleaf Morris so many years ago, is now a programmer.
That is so great. I love that. That was a wonderful tool. Thank you so much for showing us that. Now, we did start a little late, so we're giving a few extra minutes here. I can't let you go without asking, what's your favorite dance? Everybody wants to know.
Yes, so I warned you that I can't do this. There's no favorite dance. My favorite dance is different every time I'm calling somewhere or dancing somewhere. It's just when a dance catches fire, it's my favorite dance. It could be heel toe polka with the right kids just getting into it and loving that it's that silly thing. It could be Dusty Miller because it's just so gorgeous and the music just carries it. It could be St. Margaret's Hill when the caller is able to shut up because there's too many words in the calls and the dance is so lovely and the tune is so lovely. And you know, that doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's really sweet. So you know, there isn't an answer. They're all wonderful, and it's certainly Money Musk, Chorus Jig, those classics when they're danced the way Bob and Sue just did. Boy, that becomes my favorite dance. It's whatever dance is in front of me.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being on. We're so happy to have local people, from regional people from different parts of the country that maybe not all of us know about. And you had so much wonderful things to say about your community and the family dancing. Really appreciate it. Come into the after talk, which the link will be posted, and we will get to some of those questions that you were asking and some of the things I didn't get to ask you yet. I'd like to give a shout out to my Five Things team, Lindsay Verbal in the background, Reed Wilson on Zoom, Larry Hansen on Facebook, and our helpers, Dan Vilter, Kara King, and Linda Nelson. Remember that Colin Hume maintains an accessible index of all our web chats on his website in one place you can go to. So check out the list of now, I think it's 34 plus this one soon that we've had on over the last 7 months now. I had thought it was 6. It's 7. I'd like to give a big thank you to all the folks who have been sending in donations to our group, the Historical Tea and Dance Society. The money you give goes directly into supporting our Five Things web chat and online classes and the dance community. So thank you, thank you. I want to remind you all that we have a Five Things Dropbox, and they're posting the link for that. And whenever now there's things that the guest would like to have accessible to you all, like links that David mentioned and things like that, it'll be in there. And we're also posting the webinars chat. So those of you who are on the phone that can't get to it, you can go to this Dropbox folder and pull it down. You can email us and ask us for the link if you can't grab it because of your situation. So that's all that maintenance stuff that I wanted to tell you about. Next week, we have Martha Griffin coming. She's a dancer, choreographer, performer, dance teacher, and caller. We're really looking forward to having her on. She's done a lot of work in vintage dance, which we have our roots in. So we're looking forward to hearing what she has to say. We are testing a new registration process. So fingers crossed, it'll make it work and be easier for all of us. We are registering through Zoom, and you will automatically get the links to the Zoom and the after talk when you register through the Zoom registration process, and that will be the one registration. Hopefully it's going to work. I think it will, and if for some reason it doesn't, don't worry, you know, we'll send out the links. So coming Saturday, November 7th is Music 101 for dancers. What is the music telling you to do? And we are also, Rebecca King is also inviting musicians to come and play along. She will provide the tunes for you if you're a musician. So that is for sale on our website. And then if you feel like being joyful and sharing and coming and talking and having a cup of tea with us Thursdays at 5 p.m., we don't care what you're drinking. It's social hour and it's a lot of fun. We have different people come in all the time. We talk about everything and anything. So we hope you will join us. David, do you want to say a little bit about where your donation thought, and you have a story, I think, to tell us about the Argos. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, you know, when Darlene was doing all her thank yous, I think she neglected to thank herself. The energy she puts into this is astounding. And here she is. Her internet doesn't work and she's still with us. We just should give her a big shout out too. So I had this choreography experience where I wanted to write a dance for my first grandchild, and similar to what I did with Debbie Jackson, I wrote to Rachel Bell and said, would you write a tune worthy of the occasion? She actually hadn't written tunes for English dancing yet at that point in time, or not many. And so she was very excited about the idea. And she said, well, what do you want? I said, well, I love 3/2, and maybe it could be a little crooked somewhere. And so she produced this absolutely wonderful tune called the Argos Inn. And I used that to write a dance for my grandson, Isaac. I wanted to call it Little Sir Isaac's Arrival, but there was already a dance called Little Sir Isaac's that Sharon Green had been involved with. So I couldn't get away with that. So now it's Master Barton's Arrival. And so we'll go out with that music.
Great. And let me also say, I love it. David said the best donation is participation. So he has suggested that you all become members of CDSS. If you are not yet, we are going to post that link at the end. We are going out with the Argos Inn, and it's by Rachel Bell, and the musicians are Karen Axelrod, Susan Kevra, Rachel Bell. And we'll see you all in about 2 minutes. We're posting where you can get that CD and the music if you don't already have it. See you in 2 minutes. Bye. Join the after chat.